Jeffrey, are there 4 votes in the Supreme Court, because that's what it takes for them to hear the Alabama case, assuming it winds its way in that direction?
Not necessarily. We know that Chief Justice Roberts voted with the liberals to block the Louisiana law that imposed admitting requirements for doctors, suggesting that he may be inclined to uphold that law, given the fact that the Supreme Court, or rather to strike it down, given the fact that the Supreme Court did that just in 2016. And the bottom line is that Chief Justice Roberts appears not to want to overturn Roe v. Wade right now. And if the 4 conservatives who are skeptical of it are not sure that they're going to get his vote, they don't want to hear these most extreme cases right now either. They're more likely to do what they could do as early as next week, to hear challenges to doctor admitting privileges laws, or in Indiana, fetal remain disposal laws, or laws requiring ultrasounds after and waiting periods and things like that. This Supreme Court, with this composition, will not want to confront the core of Roe with laws like Alabama or Missouri, which, as Pat Robertson rightly said, are absolutely not the right way to challenge Roe. It is more likely that the court might chip away at it by upholding these lesser restrictions like waiting periods or fetal remain laws. But at least until there's another conservative justice on this court, I think most people do not think that this Roberts court is ready to overturn Roe v. Wade right now.
In other words, Roe versus Wade, am I right in hearing you that Roe versus Wade, as we know it now, is more threatened by accessibility issues like the Louisiana law than the Alabama law, which probably Alabama runs so afoul of Roe versus Wade that I believe it will be adjudged unconstitutional throughout the federal appellate process, and the Supreme Court will simply deny an opportunity to get involved. But meanwhile, these other issues that you're raising, they may effectively strike Roe versus Wade through other means.
You're absolutely right, Michael, and these restrictions on access will have the greatest effect on poor women. Right now, abortions are not meaningfully available in the states that are passing these laws, Louisiana and Alabama and so forth. And by requiring additional requirements for doctor admitting privileges, clinics will close, and it'll just be harder for poor women to get abortions. The less women of means can already go to other states in those areas, but the slow chipping away at Roe will have serious implications for reproductive rights and access. But the core right in Roe, namely to choose abortion before fetal viability, at least for now, will remain intact.
13 years ago for The Atlantic, you wrote about a post-Roe world. Put up on the screen what Jeffrey said in part. The results might not be what you'd expect. The day after Roe fell, of course, abortion would be neither legal nor illegal throughout the United States. Instead, the states and Congress would be free to ban, protect, or regulate abortion as they saw fit. But in many of the 50 states, and ultimately in Congress, the overturning of Roe would probably ignite one of the most explosive political battles since the civil rights movement, if not the Civil War. A decade plus later, is that still your view?
It is still my view, and it's also my view that you were right when you said that when the dust settled, and that could be many years of powerful battles, state by state, in Congress and in the courts, ultimately the loser would be the GOP, because all of those suburban women who are willing to be Republican as long as the core right in Roe is protected might jump ship and flee to the other side. What's changed since 2006 is abortion politics have become so much more polarized that even though there's not very much support, even in the most conservative states, for total bans on abortion, such as in Alabama, often 30% support even in those states, legislatures are even more polarized. And because the national GOP is polarized as well, you could see both state legislatures and ultimately GOP people in Congress embracing really draconian abortion bans that the majority of Republicans don't support either. So that's what's changed since 2006, and that's why overturning Roe would be good news for the Democrats.
Jeffrey Rosen, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's check in on your tweets and Facebook comments. From Facebook, Dan Lipson, what about all the conservative justices 45 has nominated? Didn't that welcome the anti-abortion movement? Well, I think that it did, but Jeffrey makes a really good point. And back in 2006, he made this point in the Atlantic, which is conservatives perhaps should not be taking John Roberts' vote for granted on this matter. Catherine, do we have Rush Limbaugh going after Brett Kavanaugh? Because this, okay, play that. This also makes the point.
People getting nervous about Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh been siding with the leftists on the Supreme Court. He's been siding with the liberal majority.
So the point is, you know, you can't take for granted the votes that we think are aligned and are going to be part of a 5-4 decision one way or the other. There's some doubt about Roberts. Keep the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare in mind when you assess the Supreme Court and what will happen on abortion. I just say that it's a net loser for Republicans as we head into 2020 to be supportive of a law that's going nowhere.